Welcome to this brand new section where we're going to talk about building credibility. And we want to build credibility because ultimately people buy from people they know, like, and trust, or they buy from companies that they know, like, and trust. If you think about the brands, etc., that you buy from, you will buy from those that you know, like, and trust. It's one of the kind of the golden rules of marketing in a way. Now, of course, we're completely unknown, okay? But there's an awful lot that we can do to build that credibility and ultimately drive more sales. And so this section is going to be a series of lectures that are going to give you a bunch of tips that you're going to be able to action very quickly and very easily for maximum effect. And I want to kick things off with this first lecture, which is going to be on branding. Now, companies spend squillions of dollars a year on branding, and of course we don't have that kind of means at our fingertips, but there's an awful lot that we can do. Now, many of these things I've covered already in the course, so in some ways this is a bit of a recap, but hopefully by putting it onto one page, it kind of brings it all home and gives you the importance of branding going forward. I'm also not expecting you to do absolutely everything all in one go. These processes such as branding are ongoing. You're going to be constantly improving your brand and constantly improving your store as you drive more and more sales and get more and more feedback. So first off, please create a proper logo. I'm sure you've done that already, but it's amazing the number of people that don't or just kind of skip through it and create a very mediocre looking logo. You know, these tools that are out there like Canva, like I showed you already, are incredibly powerful and simple to use. In no time at all, you really can have a great logo. So if you haven't done it already, please spend a bit of time doing that and then make sure that it looks great on all the platforms such as desktop, laptop, and mobile. Now, next up, we have the real domain name. Okay, we got the proper logo now, which is obviously key to branding. But having a real domain name is equally key. Again, I've showed you how to register the domain name, both in two ways, yeah? But having that domain name that obviously links to your logo and the overall title of your site is so important. So if you're still running with a mystore.myshopify.com, in other words, a subdomain, now really is the time to go ahead and get that real domain name because you cannot build a brand without a real domain name. Now, related to that is to use proper email addresses with your domain. So if your domain is myincredibleShop.com, make sure that you've set up those email addresses like I showed you, sales at, billing at, whatever it is. You don't necessarily have to use exactly those, but use them with myincredibleShop.com and actually use them, okay? I explained how with the Shopify system, because of the way they forward the emails, you potentially reply from a personal email, which reduces the impact of your branding is one of the main reasons why I don't like it. So I showed you a different way of doing it, setting up emails with TMD. So you've got all the knowledge there. So please make sure you use proper email addresses with your domain. Next up, I've written use 3 colors. Now, I don't mean exactly 3 colors, okay? What I'm trying to say is don't just have one color throughout your store and don't have 50. Sometimes when I do site reviews, there are so many colors that it's, it's a real attack on the senses. It leaves me very confused. It leaves customers very confused and it's extremely off-putting. So I'm not necessarily, as I say, just saying use 3 colors, but just use a limited number of colors and make sure that those colors go well together. Now, with that in place, you'll also want to use a consistent font. Choose a font, whatever it is, Arial, for example, and make sure that you use that font throughout everything you do, obviously throughout the site, but also your emails, etc., and have a good size of font as well. Often I see fonts that are very small. You're making the customer work trying to read your product descriptions. They won't hang around. They'll go unless they can actually read it very clearly. So again, have a look, see what it looks like on your laptop, on your desktop or on mobile. You can do all of that. You don't need those platforms, yeah? On Shopify itself, in the app, and you have the ability to see what it looks like under what we call the responsive design. And then with the font color, make sure again it ties in with the 3 colors. Don't invent yet another color that you're using for your font. And just be sure, as I say, that it all goes well together. And last but by no means least, brand the checkout. I mentioned this briefly when we were looking at fulfilling orders. And it's under settings and checkout. You see the first option as a button that gives you the opportunity to brand the checkout. So you can add things like your logo. And so you can create that consistently throughout the site, making sure that you got the same colors, making sure that you got the same font. It all goes well together with helping build that ability to know, like, and trust your brand and therefore increase your sales. Now, I know that that's just a few points, but trust me, those points I put up there, those 6 points, are super powerful, and they're also very easy to implement. Now, perhaps a less obvious way, but a very, very effective way to build credibility on your site is to include an FAQ page, a frequently asked questions page. Because I think that a lot of people think that the FAQ page is just kind of one of these pages that's buried at the back of the store and no one really visits it, so it doesn't really matter that much. But in fact, at least 25% of your customers will visit your FAQ page. And so if you haven't developed out a good one, you're missing out on an opportunity. And I like to demonstrate the power of this by using an example of a real store, a store in the real world, okay? You go in and you're browsing around and then you've got some questions. Now, in the first scenario, there is nobody there to answer your questions. Good chance you might just leave completely, right? You can't get the answer to your questions. So that's somebody leaving the store. That's clearly not good. Second scenario is that somebody's there, but when you ask them those questions, they don't really seem to have the answers, or it's a bit vague, or you can kind of tell they're making it up on the spot, right? We've all had those experiences. Same thing, it's pretty unlikely you're going to buy something, and again, you may well leave the store. Now, the third scenario is there's somebody there and they're very well informed. And when you ask them a question, they've got all of the answers. Now, when you get that kind of experience, which again, I'm sure you've experienced at some point, suddenly your trust in that store really goes up, and therefore your chances of buying something goes up as well. Okay, so it really is important that there's somebody there to answer those questions. And of course, in the virtual world, that is your frequently asked questions page. Now, at this point, you might not be sure what your FAQs are. You could probably come up with one or two fairly obvious ones, probably like, where are you based, or something like that. But as time goes by, of course, your customers are going to start asking the same questions over and over again. And at that point, really important, take that feedback and build out an FAQ page. Now, you can do that very easily within Shopify. Of course, just go down to Pages, add page, and create a frequently asked questions page. It'll take you, 10 seconds, and then you can start building up the questions as they arrive. But you might also want to consider an app. There are lots of them, and I'm just showing you this one because it's one that I've used. Of course, you can find it in the Shopify store, and because I've used it, I feel I can recommend it. But there are many of them, okay? Take your time, browse through the store. You might well find another one that you prefer. But whatever you do, please make sure that you create an FAQ page. And also, don't forget that it's a living document. Just because you create it first time around doesn't mean you're done. As you get those questions, more and more questions coming in, keep feeding that knowledge back into your FAQ page. It's going to become more and more powerful and more of a tool to help you build credibility and therefore boost your sales. So another great way to build credibility is to add product reviews. I'm pretty sure everybody listening to this lecture understands the concept of product reviews. Indeed, when you go to buy something on the internet, something that could be really, really important is to read customer reviews. You want to know what people think about the product before you go ahead and perhaps buy it. So the importance of adding product reviews at this stage cannot really be overstated. Now, there is a wrong way to do it and there is a right way to do it. And what I want to do is divide this lecture into two parts. In the first part, I'm going to show you how you can add product reviews to your products. And in the second part, I want to talk about the right way to go about getting actual product reviews. So let's kick things off with adding the product reviews. Now, Shopify by default doesn't give us the ability to add product reviews. Of course, therefore, what we need to do is use an app. So let's head over to the App Store and see what we need to do. Okay, so here I am on the Shopify App Store, and as you can see, I've already done a search on product reviews, and it's brought up a bunch of results. Now, what I'm going to say at this point is that to get a good product review app, you will need to pay. A small amount, but nevertheless, you will need to pay. I have never really seen a good free product review app, to be honest. That said, however, if you are on a budget, there is one that you should consider. It's not the one I'm going to do for this lecture, but I just want to draw your attention to it just in case you do want a good free app. It's not the best, but at least you know that it exists. So if I scroll down here a bit, you're going to see this one here. Product Reviews by Shopify. Okay, that's a completely free app. As you can see, it doesn't have a great rating, and it has, for the amount of time that's been available, a fairly minimal number of reviews. But nevertheless, it is free. However, as I said, that is not the one I'm going to focus in on this lecture. What I want to do is go back to my list, scroll up because the one that we want to look at is this one here, Luke's product reviews and photos. So the first thing you'll notice is that it has a 5-star rating and over 9,000 reviews, confirming therefore that it really is an excellent app. Now, I said it was paying, and you can see here that this is from $10 a month. But at this stage of the course, you should have sales coming in. So I believe it really does make sense to reinvest some of that money back into a great app, which should, as a result of it indirectly, of course, bring you more than $10 a month. Okay, so the same old question, whatever you're buying, whatever you're investing in should return at least that, ideally several times over, which I believe this will do. Okay, so scrolling down, what I want to draw your attention to is this bit here. You see this? The 6 reasons merchants choose Luke's. Now, here, this collect more reviews, photos, and videos. Luke's gathers authentic product reviews by using smart and customizable review request emails. Now, I alluded to in the intro to this lecture the right way and the wrong way to collect reviews. Luke's gives you the ability, and we'll get into this in a little bit more detail, but it gives you the ability to do it the right way on autopilot. And it's one of the main reasons that I really love this app. There are plenty of other reasons, but this is really a key one. So let's go up and actually add in this app. So let's do the normal thing. Let's click on Add App, Install App, and then we need to choose a plan. Now, don't forget you do have a 14-day free trial. So if you cancel before the end of the 14 days, you're not going to pay anything. But when it comes to the actual paying plan itself, you really only need the beginner. And of course, you can upgrade later on should you so wish. So let's start with beginner. Let's click on Start 14-day free trial. We'll ignore this message to upgrade. We'll just take beginner instead. And then I'm going to approve. And then let's click on Let's Get Started. You can simply accept the defaults at this stage. Again, you can change all of this later should you so wish. So we'll click on Continue. And it's here you start to see how the app can automate your product review procedure. You remember just when we were looking on the homepage for the app itself, I drew your attention to the main feature. This is basically it. The ability that once somebody has bought the product, that an automatic email goes out, and you can see it here. Hello, name. We will be grateful if you shared how things look and feel. Your review helps us and the community that supports us, and it only takes a few seconds. Of course, all of that is customizable. The key thing, however, is that it's going out automatically. You don't need to do anything. So what we're going to do here at the moment is going to simply accept the defaults. So I'm going to click here on Continue. You can as well include a discount within the email in order to entice them to make a review. But at this stage, I'm simply going to skip this. And I'm also going to skip this part, which basically gives you the ability to send reviews for orders that have already been made. Okay? I'm not going to focus on that. I'm simply going to, as I say, skip this bit. And then I'm going to finish. And that brings us to the main dashboard for the Luke's app itself. Now, the main premise of this, which I'm sure you've grasped so far, is that you don't really need to do anything. You set everything up on autopilot. People buy stuff from your store. It then automatically sends out those requests for a review. And then once you get that review, it will automatically appear on your site. Okay, so that's essentially how it works. For me, I think that's the perfect way to collect reviews. And that's also a convenient point to move to what I was calling before part 2. The right way and the wrong way to collect reviews. Now, the right way to collect reviews is exactly how it's set up by default on Luke's. Let it do the work for you. What's happening there is you're collecting real reviews. I really want to emphasize the fact that these are real reviews from real customers, because there is a temptation, and this, in my opinion, is the wrong way to do it. There is a temptation to simply make up reviews, or even worse, in my opinion, import them from sites like AliExpress. Why don't I like that? Well, I just don't feel that it's honest. I think it lacks integrity. I know from building many businesses over many, many years that honesty is absolutely the key. Sometimes it feels like you want a shortcut because you can get something more quickly. But trust me, in the long run, it doesn't work. It is so much better to build an honest business. And the way that Luke's is doing it for you automatically already does that. Now, having said that, you can see over here that we have this import reviews feature. And here we get the one-click import from AliExpress. So yes, it does give you that ability in one click to import loads of what I consider to be fake reviews from another website. I can't force you to do good things. I simply want to give you the best advice. But for me, this is the wrong way to do it. So what I want to do now is go back and just delve a little bit more into Loox itself. I'm not going to do a massively in-depth review. You already understand the concept of this whole thing, but I do just want to show you a few more things. So let's go back to the settings. And I want to draw your attention to two main parts here. We got collect reviews and display reviews. Now, just to say there are plenty of other things which you can look at your leisure, but not all of them are going to be available on the basic plan. But as I said before, to get started, the basic plan really is all you need. So if we look at collect reviews, first off, you have this managing new reviews. So if you open this up, you have the ability to auto-publish new reviews should you so wish, or check them on the way in. Okay, it's up to you. This is where you would manage that. Closing this, the other key thing is the review request timing. So you saw on the way in when we were going through those dialogues that we had an email timing of 14 days. So this is where you can change it should you so wish. In my opinion, 14 days is perfect, so I tend to leave it as is. So that's pretty much collecting reviews. The other thing is displaying reviews. Now, Loox offers various clever ways of doing this, but the key one here is the reviews widget up here at the top. And if I click into this, you're going to see straight away how you might want to display your reviews on your site, okay? Super basic, but once again, super powerful. So going back to the main settings page, really, that's all you need to know to get started. As I said before, I consider this to be a great product, and I would certainly encourage you to make use of the 14-day free trial. Now that said, and just to finish off this lecture, even if you don't use Loox, please go and have a look at some of the other apps. Please make sure that you have some product reviews on your site over time. And you only need some, all right? You don't need hundreds and thousands of product reviews. It's not necessary. 2 or 3 or 4 great product reviews per product is a really fantastic way of building up that customer confidence and building credibility for your store. Now, another really, really important part of credibility that a lot of people overlook is the speed of your website, because you will have experienced it as a user yourself. If you've gone to a site that's slow to leave, the first thing you'll do is leave and possibly never come back. So a huge wasted opportunity if your site is not up to scratch on the speed front. Now, there are loads of free tools that enable you to test your website speed. But if I was to bring you to one in particular, I would bring you here, the one I'm showing you right now, which is basically the page insights from Google themselves. Okay, so developers.google.com/page-speed/insights. And when you go here, you have the opportunity to enter your page URL. So if I put in my page URL and then simply click on Analyze, it's going to go away. And in a few seconds time, we should have some results. Now, that said, this is a completely new site. And so it doesn't have a huge amount to go on, because the more your site gets used, the more and more people that visit it, of course, the more and more data it can gather about how fast it is and potentially where the problems lie. So what it's given me here initially is an 83. Not bad, you might say, but at the same time, just as I was saying, it doesn't really have enough data straight away to give me something I can really, really rely on. And that's really my point here, is that this is a living document. Your site is changing all the time. You're adding new products. You've got variable number of customers visiting your site, all kinds of things going on all of the time. And so what's super, super important is to come and do a page speed test at least once a week. Okay, so again, in your calendar app, whatever you're using, put in there every Monday night, whatever it is, put in there, run page speed test. You can see how quick and simple it is to do. Okay, so there really is no excuse. So over time, you're going to get a much better feel for how fast your site is. Now, I will say that the Shopify platform is super fast. Okay, you will not have a problem with the platform itself. If you do have slow site problems, the two major culprits are images being too big and therefore taking a long time to load, and apps. So the more apps you have running on your site, and it does depend to a large extent what sort of apps you install, but generally speaking, the more apps you have running, the slower your site is going to be. You might remember some lectures ago I talked about Lucky Orange and having that as a great way to track visitors on your site and see what they're doing. But you probably remember at the same time I said, do not have this thing running all the time because it's really going to slow your site down. Now, the great thing about this speed test that you're looking at here is that it's going to tell you all of that over time. As you scroll down through this lot here, this is going to become far more informative, and it actually tells you exactly where all of the problems lie. So they become relatively straightforward to fix. So please don't underestimate the importance of testing the speed of your site on a regular basis. It really does go a very long way, once again, to building that customer credibility and boosting those all-important sales. So next up in the subject of building credibility is security, securing your site, and more specifically what we call an SSL certificate, a secure sockets layer certificate. Okay. You don't need to know what that means at all, but its implications are huge because basically when you have an SSL certificate, it means that the information exchanged between your website and a server is encrypted so that nobody can read it. No unscrupulous hacker can get in there and see your details. Now, if you're just surfing a site like this, it's not really a huge amount to hack. There's not much of interest. But clearly when we go to pay on something like PayPal or whatever it might be, then we have very sensitive information. Now, there's two bits of good news here. First of all, any payment provider will have SSL already installed, so you've got nothing to worry about that whatsoever. Okay, so in terms of your payments that your customers are making, that's all in a very, very secure environment. And also, if you bought your domain through Shopify or TMD, then by default, you will also have an SSL certificate in place and therefore nothing to do. But with that said, it's very important just to make sure that everything is correctly installed. And also, you might get questions from your customers. They might come to you and say, hey, is your site secure? At which point you can show them exactly the process that I'm about to show you right now. So all you need to do is to come up here to where your domain name is. And you can see I've got this padlock here. If I click on this padlock, it says connection is secure. Your information, for example, passwords or credit card numbers, is private when it's sent to this site, and then there's a valid certificate. Again, I didn't do anything to set that up. It just came when I bought the domain, either from Shopify or from TMD. Equally, if I just click next to the name here, it expands the domain name to show me that I've got HTTPS. And the S in this case, of course, stands for secure. So with my site, everything is perfect. Now, if you have any problems at all, contact Shopify and ask them why you're not seeing what I just showed you. Equally, if you bought your domain from TMD and you're not seeing it either, contact them, raise a ticket through support and say that you're not seeing a secure site. TMD offers a completely free SSL certificate. They're not always free. They offer a free one. It's called Let's Encrypt. So if you do have to raise a ticket, which you shouldn't have to, but if you do, then just talk about Let's Encrypt. But in any case, whatever it is, they will take care of it very, very quickly. Now, if you bought your domain from another source, I can't guarantee that they will have Let's Encrypt or a free SSL certificate in place. But in most cases, they're going to be able to sort things out without too much difficulty. But just a recap, you shouldn't have to do anything. This should already be in place, but please make sure that it is. Shipping and handling. Now, this is an important part of building credibility because with dropshipping, we have longer shipping times than perhaps from Amazon, for example. And longer shipping times are really no problem at all. But it is super, super, super important, that three supers, to let your customer know up front, i.e. before they buy the item, that it will take longer than perhaps they expected, because it can typically be 10 to 15 days for them to receive their products. Now, I'm going to give you some great tips to implement so that you don't have to worry about this. But if you don't implement these tips, what's going to happen is your customer is going to be expecting to get their product in perhaps 2 to 3 days. And when that doesn't happen, the emails will start coming in and you will have to deal with customer complaints, which is not what you want. But if you let your customer know up front that it may take X number of days, then it's not a problem. You manage their expectations. They know when it's going to arrive. They've got the tracking number, all the good stuff that we've seen on the course. So they're happy. Okay. So I just want to reemphasize, you need to let them know up front. So let's have a look and see how we're going to do that. So the first thing you want to do is to create a page, a shipping and handling page, so that you can explain to your customers up front what your policies are. So as you can see here, I have come to the add page part of my Shopify admin, and I'm going to create a title, which, no surprise, is going to be called Shipping and Handling. Now for the text, I've made this really easy because I created a sample page over here on my website, ecommercemindset.com/shipping. And what you can do is you can take this text, okay, just copy all of this, copy it, take it over here, and paste it in. Now, having said that, what I would encourage you to do, and I say exactly this on the page itself, this is an example of the text you can use for your shipping and handling page. It is just a guideline, so please don't just copy paste. Now, I know I've just copied paste, but what I'm trying to say is once you've done this, give it a read through and make sure that it applies as accurately as possible to your business. Okay, now once you've done that, all you then need to do is to click on Save. Now with that page created, of course, what we want to do is add it to our navigation system, and we want to put it somewhere prominent. We don't want our customer looking for our shipping and handling page. So I actually like to put it up there in the main menu. So to do that, we go over to navigation, of course, go to our main menu, add a menu item. So the name is, of course, Shipping and Handling. And then we're going to a link to the page that we just created. Add that and save it. And so now when I go to the site, I have a shipping and handling page very prominent, as I say, up here on the top, so that people don't have to look for it, that explains exactly what my shipping and handling policies are. Okay, for the next tip, we want to add a line to our product description. So if I go over here to my products, go down to my super cute bracelet, and here at the bottom, we want to add an additional line. And we want to say something like 10 to 15 days shipping. Okay? I've made it bold. It's entirely up to you. But the point is it needs to be clear. And by putting it at the bottom, typically we'll hover just above the Buy Now button. In other words, giving them ample opportunity to see that the shipping times are going to be somewhat longer. Let me just correct that word, shipping. Okay. If I now click on Save on this, that is now nice and clear. And I suggest therefore you go ahead and do that for all of your products. And then lastly, we want to add something to the email. So if we go down to the settings, go down to your notifications, and here, order confirmation. This is the very first email that goes out when somebody buys something from your site. Okay, this is the email that they're going to get. So click into this. Now, I know this is a whole load of gobbledygook, but we can actually see in here some pretty plain English. You'll receive an email when your order is ready for pickup. And what I suggest you do just after this is add in a phrase, something like this, okay? Please note your order could take 10 to 15 days to arrive, okay? Nice and succinct, and once again giving them plenty of opportunity to see how long the order is likely to take. And so as I hit save on this, what we've now done in 3 separate places is made your policy very, very clear, thereby allowing your customers to see exactly how this is going to work up front, which in turn will hugely reduce the number of complaints and queries that you might get, while all at the same time further improving the credibility of your store. So I really hope you've enjoyed all these tips on how to build credibility within your store, within your business. So I just want to round off this section now by talking about how you might want to improve the customer communication. Because up to now, basically what we have is a contact us page with an email address on it, which I would stress is absolutely fine to get started. But as time goes by, and I'm talking about perhaps 1 to 3 months, you might want to think about improving the ways that your customers can communicate with you, the ways that they can reach you. Now, I want to emphasize that there are tons of solutions out there, and for me to do a review on all of them would take me hours and probably bore you to tears. So what I'm showing you here is one called Grasshopper, and the only reason why I'm showing it to you is because I've used it and therefore I feel I can personally recommend it. I have nothing to do with this business. I'm not affiliated with it in any way, and I would encourage you to look around and make your own decisions. But at least having used it, I can advise you that it is a good system. Now, the other thing I want to say, and it's just a kind of general point, is that as you build out your business, you're going to have all kinds of opportunities to purchase apps. And they're all fairly low cost, generally speaking. We're sort of talking $10, $20, $30 a month, something like that. And many of them are very powerful and certainly worth the cost. But the general advice I want to give you is don't buy things until your business can afford it. Don't on day one just go out and start buying up, 5, 6, 7 apps which you think might have a big impact on your business and suddenly finding that you're spending, $100, $200 a month on apps. When you've got perhaps $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $10,000 coming in a month, by all means, have a careful look at the apps that you want to use. And so this app, Grasshopper, very much fits into that category. It's something like $25 a month, which is why I say don't consider it really until you're perhaps 1 to 3 months into your business. But why would we want to consider it at all? Well, this app provides you with a virtual phone number. And I should point out that this is an app that you want to download onto your smartphone. Apologies if you don't have a smartphone, but I think most of the people doing this course will have a smartphone. So it's an app you download onto your smartphone, not an app that you download into your Shopify store. So with it downloaded onto your smartphone, you get a virtual telephone number which you can then put onto your website. So now your customers can call you. They can also send you texts and they can also leave you voice messages. And you can manage all of that from your app, which is a very easy and efficient way to run your business. Now, you might be thinking, well, I'll just use my personal telephone number. I really don't advise that, okay? I strongly suggest you don't use your personal phone number because as you develop your business, you do not want to have potentially hundreds of calls coming in on your own personal number and having that number out there as well. It's going to cause you all kinds of problems down the road. So, as I say, when you get to the right point, get a virtual phone number. Now, just as a final thought, you might be thinking to yourself, well, I don't want to do any of this at all. I don't want to be handling customer queries all day long. And again, when you reach the right moment, you might want to therefore hire a virtual assistant to do it for you. Get somebody who is going to be on the phone, who's going to answer those texts, and who's going to respond to those voicemails. In any case, with a system like this or whatever you choose, you have the option to have a very powerful solution at your fingertips to build out that all-important credibility. So I really hope you enjoyed that section on building credibility for your store. And so you've probably noticed that I've called this section boosting your sales for free almost. Because in fact, there's a lot we can do now. Now that we've got people coming to our site, there's a lot we can do to massively increase our sales with really spending very little money. And the first thing I want to talk about is recovering abandoned carts. So first of all, what is it? What am I talking about? Well, let's head over to the site and have a look. So I'm sure you've already got a pretty good idea, but just to be absolutely certain so that we're on the same page, what we're talking about is that after all of your hard work of people coming to the site, they get to this point, the cart, and then they just leave your site. And they can leave for multiple reasons, and we'll be talking about that in a moment. So they might leave at the point of the cart, or they might get to the checkout and leave at this point, or they might put all this information in, get to the point of paying and leave without actually making any payment. Now, you've probably guessed already that in this section, I'm going to be offering you some solutions so that this doesn't happen nearly as often as you want. But before I go any further, I want to stress that this whole business of abandoning carts or abandoning checkouts online is totally normal because it's very much different from the real world. If you think about going into a store and then perhaps pulling some items off the shelves, it's unlikely that once you've got them in your hands that you're just going to put them down and walk out. You might, okay? That would be sort of the equivalent of abandoning the cart, if you like. And then if we looked at the equivalent of abandoning the checkout, now you've managed to get to the checkout, perhaps you're standing in line or you're now right in front of the salesman ready to make that final payment, and you just run out the store for whatever reason, right? You just abandon the checkout. So those things in the real world don't really happen very often, I think you will agree. But online, of course, the environment is completely different. So abandoned carts and checkouts are annoyingly really quite common. And when I say common, why is it such a big deal? Well, in fact, you might be surprised to know that 2/3 of carts are abandoned. And just as a little aside, in this industry, when we talk about carts, often we're talking about carts and the checkouts together. But those two together, therefore, 2/3 are abandoned. So let's put some numbers on that. Let's imagine that you're doing $10,000 a month in sales. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that you have potentially lost 2/3 of your sales, so more or less $6,600. Now, before you panic, of course, I do have good news ahead. I do have a solution for you, which is going to be able to recoup an awful lot of those sales. But just before we get into that, let's have a look at the reasons why people will abandon the cart or the checkout. So here we go, the top 10 reasons for abandoned carts and checkouts. Now, before we get going, I want to emphasize that a lot of what you've already learned, whether you know it or not, because I've basically been feeding in bits and pieces throughout the course, much of what you learned has been designed already to reduce how many people will abandon your cart and checkout. And so as we go through this list, I will mention those so that it all nicely ties in. But of course, that's not the end of the story. Once we've gone through the list and you fully understand why people abandon, we'll then get into some even better solutions to get those people to come back to your site to buy your products. So in at number 1 is shipping costs being too high. 51% of people abandon the checkout because they say that the shipping costs are too high. Now, an extreme example of this, if you cast your mind back to when I was talking about shipping rates and when we set them all up, an extreme example of this would be the free plus shipping model. And you might remember me saying that I didn't like that because basically people are charged potentially €20 or something crazy for the shipping at the checkout. And it's that reason that many people just run away at that point. Now, I also talked about reasonable shipping, okay? So we put on $2.95, that kind of level of shipping. So not to scare our customer away, but also the opportunity to increase our profit margins by charging a small amount. Now, you might want to go down the free shipping route, which again is another good model. And if you do, then clearly you're not going to have any problems with people complaining that the shipping costs are too high. But whatever you decide to do, if you set up shipping like I advised, then there's no way that your shipping costs are too high. So already you're in good shape. Next up, we have that the site wanted me to create an account. 31% abandoned for that reason. Now, I hope you remember many lectures ago, I said take off that setting where you ask people to create an account at the checkout. So now you really understand why. After that, we have 23% that said the checkout process was too long and complicated. Well, this is very short because the Shopify process for checking out is not long or complicated. It is, in fact, as I'm sure you'll agree, very simple and very concise. Number 4, 20% saying the total cost is not clear. Well, again, that's not the case. It's very clear how much the customer is going to pay for your products. Then we move on to didn't trust the site. Well, I've done a whole section on building credibility for your site. So if you take action with all those tips I've given you, that 17% should more or less disappear. Then we have the delivery is too slow, which now and again can be an issue for dropshipping. But once again, I've given you some tips on what you need to do to let your customer know up front how long your products are going to take to be delivered. So with those in place, you should massively reduce as well. That's 16%. Then we have that there are website errors or the website crashed. Well, I can assure you that the Shopify platform is very, very stable. So the chance of your website crashing is basically zero. But website errors, that's why I talked about putting in perhaps a weekly process where you go through and make a test order to ensure that you don't have any issues with your website going forward. Number 8, the returns policy was unsatisfactory. Well, I went through a whole process with you there to show you what you should write for your returns policy so that it is in fact very, very satisfactory. And then moving on to the last 2, we have number 9, which is 6%, saying there weren't enough payment methods. Okay, fair enough. As long as we got 1, that's great. I did mention if you have 2, so much the better. But you can see 6% is very low. And finally, 4%, the credit card was declined. Well, that's really not our problem. That could well be an issue with the customer's credit card itself. So having gone through that list, I hope you realize, I hope you see with everything that we've been learning, everything that's been building up to this point, that much of it has been aimed at reducing your abandoned carts and checkouts. Now, these numbers here are basically industry statistics, and it would be really nice to think that with all the things that we have implemented already, that we could almost reduce our abandoned carts and checkouts down to 0. But sadly, that's not the case. Yes, what you've learned will massively reduce your abandoned carts, but it's certainly not going to reduce them down to 0. And the reason for that, I believe, is something that's not mentioned on this list at all, because it's something that's very difficult to measure. And that is the number of distractions that we have the moment we go online. I think you will agree. I think if you're honest with yourself, whenever you go online, you're super focused. I'm going to go and do this, right? You get there and then suddenly there's a WhatsApp message or something comes in from Facebook or you see you've missed a Skype call or Snapchat or whatever it could be, right? Between our laptops and our phones, we are distracted all of the time. And I believe this happens so often when people are on the point of buying something, whether it's in the cart or the final stages of the checkout, that they genuinely just forget about what they were doing. They forget to come back and actually make the purchase. So while these numbers are all very interesting, I believe that that statistic, which is very difficult to measure, is responsible for the majority of reasons why people abandon the carts and checkouts. So now for the good news. How are we going to recover those 2/3 carts that are abandoned on average and massively increase our sales? That's ultimately what we're interested in. Well, it won't surprise you to hear that there's an entire industry, a software industry, effectively built up around providing solutions to achieve exactly that. And there are many, many of them. And what I'm about to show you now are two of the most effective. We're going to look at a method from Shopify itself, and then we'll look at a third-party solution in the lecture after that. And both of those methods are going to put you in very good shape to recover the vast majority of your abandoned carts and checkouts, and once again, massively increase your sales. So this first method is actually built in already into Shopify, which is great news. So there's no extra cost, and it's also super easy to implement. But it is email-based, which does come with certain restrictions because, of course, we need to have their email in order to benefit from it. So it might be really obvious, but I just want to show you the action, the procedure that a potential customer would go through and at which point they will abandon the checkout so that you can then benefit from this email system that Shopify has to offer. So the situation would be that they'd come to this stage, okay, they put in all their contact information and the shipping address, and then they click on continue to shipping. Now you can see there's an email address in there. I've blurred out most of it, but you can see there's an email address in there. At this point, I have not submitted this form. So I need to go and submit this form so that we then have that email in our system. So it's therefore at this point, we now have the email and the customer for whatever reason. It could be those multitude of reasons that I showed you in the previous lecture, or it could just be that the phone rang and they ran off and forgot about it. But for whatever reason, they have abandoned the checkout at this point. They haven't gone any further. They haven't continued to payment. So now that you properly understand the point at which they abandoned the checkout, let's head over to our Shopify admin and see how we can recover this potentially lost sale. So I've come straight into my settings because you'll be pleased to know that the Shopify solution is 100% automated. So to see how that is set up, all you need to do is to go into the checkout, scroll towards the bottom where you're going to see this, abandoned checkouts. Now, as I said, this is an email solution, so make sure that this is checked on. Automatically send abandoned checkout emails. You then want to send to anyone who abandons the checkout. And then you have this parameter, send after, which is basically saying how long should the system wait after the checkout has been abandoned? How long should it wait before it sends the email? I'll have a look at the email in a minute that's going to be sent. But how long should it wait? Now, this is always up for discussion, okay? And you can see that by default, Shopify has recommended 10 hours. Now, I prefer to actually do it after 1 hour. I just feel that I want to grab their attention before too much time has gone by. It's very difficult to test this, to know which one is best, to be honest, 1 hour, 6 hours, or 10 hours, because you have to do a test where only this will be changed, which is tough to do. But in any case, it's more of a feeling, if you like. I prefer to do it for 1 hour. If you want to go 6 or 10 as they recommend, or maybe even 24, it's up to you. But nevertheless, you can see that it's going to automatically send them an email. So let's now have a look and see what that email looks like. So no doubt you've seen this customize email button here. If I click on that, it will take me to the email, but I just want to show you another way of getting to it. So let's just save this. Let's go back to the settings and go into notifications, because it is simply part of that entire list of notifications. So I just wanted to show you this way so you know where it's coming from. So if I go down a bit here, you can see abandoned checkout. Okay. So if I click on this, this is the email that's going to go out. Okay. They give you a template already. Subject is complete your purchase. And then all this gobbledygook, right? All this tough stuff to understand. If you want to see what that looks like in reality, you just need to click on preview. And so this is the email they're going to get. You left items in your cart. Hi, Bob, whatever. You added items to your shopping cart and haven't completed your purchase. You can complete it now while they're still available. Okay, and by clicking on that button, it's going to take them straight back to the checkout. So all they need to do is to make the purchase. Okay, and then below are the actual items that have been sitting in their cart. Now, all of this, of course, is totally customizable, but to be honest, when you're just getting going, this is a really good start. But there is just one more thing I want to show you. So let's come out of here and go over to Orders, Abandoned Checkouts. And this, of course, is a list of your abandoned checkouts, okay? So this is going to build up over time. And Shopify will hold this data for 3 months, okay? After that, it just deletes it. Now, what I want to draw your attention to in particular is the recovery status, okay? So if the cart is recovered, in other words, that email goes out, they click on it, and then they make the payment, that is going to change to recovered, which, of course, is great news. But actually, what I'm really interested in are those that were never recovered, because I want to look for patterns. There may be signs, indications as to why those people are abandoning the checkout. And it may be, for example, that every time there's a certain product with a certain price and a certain shipping fee, it's always abandoned. Now, you have to spend some time, of course, looking at all this data, and you need a decent amount to give you a proper idea of what's going on. But I just want to draw your attention to it, because as time goes by, you may well want to come back to this abandoned checkouts page to see if it's telling you things that simply aren't working on your store. Okay, so this can be a really interesting source of information. Okay, so that's the abandoned checkouts from Shopify. As I said before, I hope you agree. It's a simple and powerful system, and you don't have anything to do. Now, as I also said in the previous lecture, there are many solutions for this. This one is great because it's so easy to set up and it's completely free. So it's almost like a why not. But in the next lecture, I'm going to show you another solution, which I think is also very good and very powerful, but is really quite different. So the last lecture, clearly we looked at using email to recover abandoned carts. Well, as I say, there are many ways of recovering abandoned carts. And what I'm trying to do here is just open your eyes to some of the possibilities. And so what we're going to talk about here are using web push notifications to recover abandoned carts. Now, if you don't know what that is, don't worry, because it will all become clear as we progress through this lecture. Now, because push notifications is not something that's available in Shopify by default, we need to install an app. So I've come here to the App Store, and as you can see, straight to an app called Push Owl. Now, this is a highly respected app, but I do want to point out at the same time that it is paying. There is a free element, but in order to get the abandoned cart recovery part, you do need to pay. And it's around about $20 a month. Now, just as an aside, whenever you're looking at installing or buying any app, you need to think about whether it's an investment. That's the first thing you need to think about. So if this thing costs $20 a month, can it make me $100 a month, or at least way more than $20 a month? Okay, that's the way I look at it every single time, and that's the way you should look at it as well. So if we think about it in those terms, $20 a month with that business model means that if we were to recover 2 or 3 carts during the month using this app, it would essentially pay for itself, and we would be in profit. Now, I'm not saying for a second that you have to buy this app. All I'm doing here is showing you how you can use push notifications to recover abandoned carts. So let's get into it. Let's actually install this app and see what it has to offer. So we'll click on Add App and then scroll down to the bottom and Install App, which brings you to the dashboard. Now, in order to bring this to life, in case you're not quite sure still what I'm talking about, let me go over here to opt-ins. And over here on the right-hand side, I draw your attention to this image where you can see it says timsfantasticdeals.com wants to show you notifications, block or allow. I'm sure you've seen this sort of thing as you go through the web. So what we now have on our site by default, having installed this app, is exactly this. And it will show, as you can see on desktop, after 5 seconds. So if I go over to my site, here it is, okay, in action. Tim's Fantastic Deals wants to show you notifications. So I click on Allow. I get this thing down the bottom here. You are subscribed. We will keep you posted with latest updates. In other words, they can now send me information direct to my desktop. And if I go back here and click on Home, you can see that a subscriber has been added. I now have 1 subscriber, 1 person that I can push these notifications to. Now, the huge difference with that, as I'm sure you realize, is I didn't need the email. In the previous lecture, it was all about grabbing the email before we could contact them. Here, we can push stuff directly to our potential customer without needing their email address, which is clearly hugely powerful. Now, I must emphasize, this is not a spamming system. If you start spamming with this in any way, shape or form, you're going to get into all kinds of trouble and almost certainly be banned from using this app. So you need to use it professionally and also with caution. Now, I'm not about to do a full-blown tutorial on push-out, but one of the things that you can do for free, because as I said, this is essentially a paying app in order to do what we want to do, which is control abandoned carts, but at least you can do some things for free. And one of them is campaigns. So campaigns is basically messages that you can send directly to them. So if I were to click here over on new campaign and then just click on continue, you can see here I could create a title and a message, and I could basically send that directly to my potential customers. So you can have things like flash sale next 24 hours or new product available. Check it out now. I'm sure you start to get the idea of how you can push these notifications to your customers to entice them into your site and potentially buy your products. Now, that said, the bit that I really want to show you, of course, is all about abandoned carts. That's what we're talking about in this section. So let me come out of this, go back to the dashboard, and it's this part here that we're most interested in. So abandoned carts. Now you can see that it's locked because, as I said, it's a paying app. However, you do get the chance to use a 14-day free trial. So I would really encourage you to check this out. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to click on this Start My 14-Day Free Trial. I need to approve the subscription now. So that means that in 14 days, it's going to charge me. So if you do this and you want to make sure you don't get charged, put some kind of flag in your calendar or something to make sure you cancel this before then. But otherwise, just go ahead and click on Approve Subscription. Okay, so I now have access to the abandoned carts part. So let's go back to this. And this is what I want to show you. So if I just scroll down a little bit here. So you can see here at the title here, trigger is when a subscriber adds a product to the cart. Okay, so they've added a product to the cart, and then for whatever reason, for any of those reasons I showed you before, they have disappeared away from the site. But remember, once again, we don't have their email. We don't need that. We can push this directly to their desktop. Now, of course, this is totally customizable, but you could see by default, you get a really cool sequence, a very, very powerful sequence. So reminder 1 that goes out after 20 minutes can say one thing. Reminder 2 that goes after 2 hours could say another. And reminder 3 after a day could say something else. And you can see with the messages they've already got. So after 20 minutes, we've saved your cart for you. Buy them now before they get out of stock. Okay. After 2 hours, allow me to teleport you back to your cart free of charge, of course. Okay. So a little bit of humor, always good. And reminder 3, did you forget something? Don't worry. It's still for sale. So I've no doubt you can already see how powerful this system is. Now, not only that, if you use this in combination with the email system we talked about in the previous lecture, you're going to start recovering an enormous part of those abandoned carts, and as a result, massively boost your sales. So in this lecture, we're going to talk about upsells and cross-sells. And this is yet another way to boost sales massively, really for no extra cost, because we're talking about somebody who is now already on your site. So they're perfectly primed to buy more products from you. So first of all, what are upsells and cross-sells? Well, really all we're talking about is selling complementary products. Okay, so somebody's come to your site, they've put something in the cart, they're about to buy it, and you're going to show them another product from your product range that totally complements what they've already chosen. So their reaction, the reaction you want from them is, oh yeah, that makes sense. I want that as well. Okay, so upsells and cross-sells are as simple as that. Now, just to go into a little bit more detail, I'm going to use the classic McDonald's reference here so that you understand the difference between upsells and cross-sells. So the classic McDonald's reference is somebody goes into a McDonald's, the hamburger restaurant, and they buy a hamburger. And the person at the customer desk says, would you like a Big Mac? Okay. And you say, yes, that would be great. So that's an upsell. You went in to buy a hamburger and you end up buying a Big Mac. Now, at the same time, they say, would you also like some fries with that? Okay. The classic phrase. Now that is a cross-sell that basically goes with the hamburger that you bought. All right. But basically, I think you can see that everything I'm talking about is complementing your initial purchase. Now, in Shopify, there are many apps to assist us with exactly that process, but I particularly like this one, Frequently Bought Together. And as you can see, it's like Amazon-like recommended products. So I'm sure that most people listening to this lecture have been on Amazon, and you buy something on Amazon, and below it says something like, people who bought this product also bought. Okay. Those are basically upsells and cross sells in the way that I've just described. They're complementary products. And I've no doubt that at some point you have ticked and said, yes, I would like that as well. So this app, Frequently Bought Together, brings that functionality to your store. Now you can see that there's a small fee involved, but if you do the maths, if you basically make more than $8 per month from this app, you're clearly going to be in profit. And it's for that reason that I think it really works well and I like to recommend it. So let me go ahead and install this app. Scroll down and click on Install App. And then I'm going to kick off my free trial. Okay, fantastic. The installation was successful. So let's click on OK. And it brings us to the homepage for this app. So I'm not going to do a full-blown tutorial on this app, but I do want to draw your attention to a couple of key points as to how this really does work very well. First of all, this app learns, okay? So as you sell products with your store and people buy products with other products, okay, basically bundles that they create themselves, this app will record that. So let's say that you have a dog store and you're selling a dog basket. And every time somebody puts that dog basket into the cart, they also end up buying a dog toothbrush. All right. They always do that. Now, because they're doing that and because this app is learning, the next time that somebody puts in a dog basket into their cart, this app is actually going to recommend automatically the dog toothbrush because it knows that it goes well with it. It knows that it sells well. It knows that the two are very complementary, which, as I'm sure you can see straight away, is an enormously powerful feature. This app is literally helping you make more sales automatically. And believe it or not, simply by installing this app, it's already done a lot of the heavy lifting. Let me show you what it's already done with basically me doing nothing. So if I go over to my store here, and let's just imagine that I was going to buy the Life is Simply Better with Dogs pendant. If I click on this, okay, and scroll down, you now see a Frequently Bought Together section automatically added in, okay? So it's already prompting my user to basically buy these additional products. Absolutely fantastic. They have full control, of course. They can click all these off. They don't have to do it. They can change, in this case, the variant. It really does work extremely well. And it will have done that for all of my products. And as things go on, as I say, as people actually start to include these various products in the cart, it's going to learn more and more about your customer behavior. Now, if we just go back to the app itself, and scroll down, this is where the magic happens, okay? Your recommendation explorer and the recommendation tuning, okay? So the recommendation explorer is where you can basically go and see how it's actually doing that, okay? The brains behind it, if you like, and then you can tune that whole process should you so wish. You can also, of course, override the whole thing by creating your own manual bundles. So I hope you can see the power of this app. I really recommend that you go and install it. It's actually kind of fun to play with. See what product it recommends that should be bundled together from the products that you've already put on your site. And of course, you can then play with it yourself and just basically increase the sales as a result. So that's a great app for doing cross sells and upsells. There is one other that I would like to show you, which is called Reconvert. Okay. Now, this is slightly different because this one focuses on the thank you page. So in other words, somebody has made a purchase. Let's just take that same example. So somebody has bought a dog basket, okay? They've actually put it into their cart and they've paid for it. And now they're on the confirmation page, the thank you page. This app does things slightly differently. So having actually bought it, they would then encourage you to buy something else while you're still on the site. Now, both these processes work extremely well, okay? The Frequently Bought Together, which is focused on prior to making the purchase, and the Reconvert, Upsell and Cross-Sell, which is more focused on after the purchase, right? Both these are excellent apps. You can see that this has got a 5 out of 5 stars, 1,220 reviews, and back on Frequently Bought Together, we have similar statistics, okay? Both excellent apps. I really recommend you install them both, play around with them, and they can really help you boost your sales. So at this point in the course, you now have absolutely everything you need to build out a fantastic business. But what if you want to take it to the next level? What if you want to go to 10,000 a month, 50,000 a month, 100,000 a month? I mean, the sky really is the limit with this business model. The only limit, if you like, is you, your dedication and your ability to take action and really make it happen. But as you grow, there are some things that you need to consider. And it's those things that I want to teach you in the upcoming lectures so that you're really ready when you get to that point. Now, the first thing I want to address is alternatives to AliExpress. I'm not talking about replacing AliExpress. I'm talking about building on top of what you already have. So why would you want to consider alternatives to AliExpress? Well, in a kind of vague sense, if you like, as I've written here, as you increase your revenue, alternatives to AliExpress makes good business sense. So that does sound a little bit vague. I understand that. Let's delve in, therefore, a little bit into the detail. Why is that the case? Well, in fact, there are three main reasons. Now, the first reason, resilience, is probably the most important. And if you're building up this business or any business in the future, whatever you do, resilience really is one of the keys to success when you're building something really big, okay? When you're smaller, it's not necessarily so important, but as you grow, it really is. So what does resilience even mean? Well, it means that you can withstand outside shocks, okay? Let's imagine that you had an employee who was absolutely key to the business and they left. What you want to be thinking is, okay, that's a bit sad that they're gone, but no worries. I've got a plan B. I've got another person who can just easily slot into that position while we look for somebody else. That's resilience. You don't want to have somebody that you rely on 100% and when they leave, it's a disaster and the whole business collapses. You never want to be in a situation like that. Now, with AliExpress, imagine you're making $50,000 a month and suddenly there's a problem with AliExpress itself. Maybe your account is blocked. Maybe you have a problem with the payment system. Maybe the site goes down. It could be anything like that. These are real world problems. I mean, it's very unlikely, but these are real world problems and you need to consider it. So what you want to be thinking at that point is, no problem, I have an alternative to AliExpress. I can go over here and do this for a while I fix my AliExpress problem and then I'm back on track. No problem whatsoever. No stress. I have built-in resilience. The second reason is shipping times. Now, I always get asked this about AliExpress and the shipping times, and you've probably seen now that in some cases the shipping times can be quite long. Now, if you've actually been taking action and doing orders, you will have also seen that the shipping times are typically nowhere near as long as the supplier will state. And the reason for that is because the supplier will always overstate how long it's going to take. Think about it. If they say it's going to take 5 days and it takes 15, they've got a problem. You're going to complain. But if they say it's going to take 30 days and it takes 15, suddenly they look great. So it always makes much better business sense, at least from their point of view, to overstate the shipping times. But we can improve shipping times, and some of the alternatives to AliExpress allow us to do exactly that. And then lastly, branding. As you grow, it's always nice to have the option. You don't have to do it, but it's always nice to have the option to possibly brand your products. Put your own product name on the packaging or maybe even on the product itself. Now with AliExpress, we don't really have that possibility. It's not really their business model. But there are ways, there are alternatives that allow us to brand our products going forward and help us build that global business. So those are the three main reasons. I'm not saying they're the only reasons, but they're certainly the principal reasons. And also, if you're in a country where AliExpress is blocked entirely, and that does happen from time to time with some countries, if that's the case with you and you're looking for a workaround to AliExpress, then the upcoming lectures are also going to be very, very interesting. So, with that said, clearly that begs the question, what are the best alternatives? Well, as ever, there are hundreds of different possibilities out there, possibly thousands. And of course, I'm going to show you the best. I'm going to take you straight there so that you don't have to waste thousands and thousands of hours trying to figure all of this out. So let's have a look at those in the upcoming lectures. So first up, let's have a look at AliExpress agents. Now, there are many of these, but of course, I'm going to show you the best ones. And in fact, there are two in particular that I want to draw your attention to. So what is an agent? Well, an agent is somebody who will buy products themselves from Ali, store it in their own warehouse, and then you order directly from the agent instead of AliExpress directly. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. They will buy the products, they will store it in their own warehouse, and you will interact with them directly, no longer with AliExpress. Okay, so I hope you see the difference. Now, by doing that, an agent can then establish warehouses in locations all around the world. So let's imagine that they establish a warehouse in the United States. So now when it comes to ordering, and particularly with shipping times, they can now deliver far more quickly because now they're based in the United States, right? They're no longer shipping directly from China, which drastically reduces shipping times. Also, by having their own warehouses, they can offer additional services, including branding. Okay, you can probably imagine the product is sitting there in the warehouse. It's quite easy for them to put your own brand name on the product or on the packaging prior to sending it to the customer. So I'm sure you can already see why an agent could make sense. First of all, it gives you resilience, okay? Again, we're not replacing AliExpress. You can still continue to have your below AliExpress processes working. But should there be any kind of issue, you've got eProlo as a potential backup or always running alongside. It's entirely up to you. You now have resilience built in. And then, as I've just described, you got your faster shipping time, so a big tick for that. And you also have the option of branding. So, of course, eProlo is an app, as I'm sure you realize because you've been looking at this page now for a couple of minutes. Not only that, but it's an extremely well-respected app. You can see that there are 5 stars with well over 1,000 reviews, and it is free. So how do they make their money? Well, they actually take a small percentage of the order, okay? A very small percentage of the order. They've got to make their money somehow, and that's the way that they do it. We've also here got mention of the expedited shipping, so 5 to 8 days to the UK, 7 to 12 to the US, 15 to 20 to South America, etc. So much improved shipping times. And then, of course, finally, building your own brand. So eProlo really is a good app. It's been around for a number of years now, so it's been tried and tested. And as I repeat myself, it has some excellent reviews. So I really would encourage you to have a look at this. Now, in addition to eProlo, you also have another app called CJ Dropshipping. Without wanting to repeat all those same points again, this really does offer very similar services to eProlo. It is, if you like, a direct competitor. So there's no reason why you couldn't take both. You could further build out that resilience. You've got your own now direct contact with AliExpress via Oblo. You've got eProlo and you've got CJ Dropshipping. Fantastic resilience, faster shipping times, and if you want it, the possibility to brand your own products. So we've already got a couple of great alternatives, but of course those still rely on AliExpress itself. If we want to build out real resilience, it would also be good to have an option that doesn't rely on AliExpress. And this is where this app comes in, Spocket. As you can see, it says Spocket US and EU dropshipping. And if I draw your attention to this paragraph down here, Dropship EU and US suppliers, you can see that the suppliers are based in the US, the EU, Canada, Australia, Brazil, and more. In other words, not China. In other words, not AliExpress. In addition to that, because their warehouses are based in areas typically where your clients also reside, they can offer the faster shipping. And if I scroll down towards the bottom here to have a look at some of their other features, draw your attention to this part, create a powerful brand. Okay, with branded invoices, the products shipped will have your store's logo, personal note, and name on them. So Spocket firmly ticks all 3 boxes for resilience, faster shipping, and branding. Now, Spocket isn't a free app. You do have to pay for it. But once again, like I say, with all apps, ask yourself the question, if you're going to spend $20 a month on an app, is it going to return you 10 times that? If it is, then you should certainly consider using it. Now, I would definitely encourage you to at least have a look at the free trial. And once again, I want to emphasize all of these solutions that I'm showing you can live together. They can run concurrently. You can have, as ever, your AliExpress and Obolo solution. You could also have eProlo. You could also have CJ Dropshipping. And now, as well, you could have Spocket. It doesn't mean you have to use them all at the same time. So you have that option should you ever need it. Now, another really great app that's been around for quite some time is this app here, Importify. Now, Importify allows you once again to bring in products from outside of AliExpress. It does also work with Ali, but I want you to view it as working with alternatives to AliExpress. So you can see here we got import products, AliExpress, Alibaba, Amazon, Etsy, Walmart, and Shine. If I go down here a bit as well, you'll see the list here, which also includes DHgate. So there are plenty of additional resources there. Now, one thing I want to make very clear is that just because you're going to import from a different site, please don't forget the golden rules. You may well find other sources are too expensive and they don't really fit the all-important golden rules that I've been teaching you. So please don't forget about those. The other thing to keep in mind is typically this app, it's great, but it's not as slick as Deezer's in terms of allowing you to import products. That typically is quite straightforward, but fulfilling the orders is something a little bit more complicated. So I'm not trying to dissuade you at all from using this app. It's great. If you come to the appropriate moment in your business and you think, yes, I would like to have additional resources to AliExpress, certainly have a look at this. But beware some of the limitations that you might have and never, ever forget the golden rules. So in this last lecture on AliExpress alternatives, I want to introduce you to the world of directories, which you may or may not be aware of. Now, up to now, we've been looking at Ali, of course, and associated apps. But there also exists directories of suppliers who are willing to have their products dropshipped. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to have the beautiful integration of some apps or Oblo, for example. But what it does mean is you get access to a completely new source of products that you might otherwise not have had. Now, probably the best known directory on the internet at the moment, and has been, to be honest, for many years now, is what's called SaleWho, what you're looking at now. And as you can see, it's a powerful research tool, supplier directory, and online community for dropshippers, wholesalers, and e-commerce store. Now, what you do here is you pay a one-off fee. It's not that expensive. Let's have a quick look at the pricing. And if I put this onto a lifetime of $127, or if you like, you can pay annually $67. So always the same calculation. If I'm going to pay $67 a year for a service like this, it better be returning me a very good return on this initial cost. Now, having access to the directory, you'll then see that you can explore suppliers possibly in your area, perhaps very locally. And then you can start to build a different business, again, away from AliExpress. It builds in all-important resilience. You can also ship perhaps locally as well, therefore getting those faster shipping times. And depending on the supplier as well, you may well be able to brand the products. What this product does, what SaleWho does in the end, is nicely completes what I consider to be a really nice set of AliExpress alternatives. Yes, there are many others, and I do encourage you to look around and see what you can find. But in my opinion, these are the best. You have AliExpress and Oblo together, which of course I've been looking at throughout the course. Then you have the AliExpress agents. You have Spocket for suppliers within the EU and the US. And now you have the possibility of SaleWho for a more simplistic, yet still very powerful way of finding very exciting suppliers. Now, something else is very likely to happen as your business grows is you'll want to expand geographically or want to sell in other countries, or as I've put here, going global. Now, the good news is there is really very little to stop you doing that. I mean, of course, your store is on the internet, so it's already available worldwide. But to give it more of a global feel, you might want to consider being able to show your products in different currencies. Now, you probably remember many, many lectures ago when we set up your store currency, I encourage you to put it in as US dollars because that is the most recognized global currency, which gets you off to a very good start. But perhaps you might be thinking, if I want to sell in Europe, I really would like my products to appear in euros. And if I want to sell in Australia, it would be great if they were showing in Australian dollars, etc. So how could you do that? How could you show your products in the currency that's relevant to the country where your potential customer is living? Well, of course, it's no surprise it can all be done with an app, and a currency converter app for that matter. And there are many of them, but once again, this is one that I've used in the past, so I can recommend it to you. So best currency converter, and you can see the number of reviews, well over 6,000 with a 4.8 star. So, this is a good app. And if we just scroll down a bit to look at the key features, I would draw your attention to, first of all, easily add multiple currencies. So you can add up to 160 currencies. And then this part here is exactly what I've just been talking about, automatically convert prices. The prices convert automatically based on your customer's location. Now, it has a free plan and a paid plan, and the paid plan is able to automatically detect where your customer is. So it can see, for example, that the customer is in, let's say, Australia, and therefore convert the currency on your site automatically to Australian dollars. On the free one, that person in Australia would have to actually select Australian dollars from a drop-down list. So it's not automatic. So that's the main difference between the free and the paid. But if you want to be able to show specific currencies in specific countries, then this app can handle that for you. Now, the other question that pops up a lot once you start thinking about a global store is the possibility of displaying it in different languages. Now, of course, there's an app for that as well. This one's called Weglot, or at least I think that's how you pronounce it. And to be honest, I haven't used this app, okay? But I do see this one popping up a lot, and as you can see, it's very well reviewed. Now, whereas displaying your store in different currencies is a pretty straightforward process, displaying your store in different languages needs a bit more thought. Because while I'm sure this app does a great job of allowing you to input multiple languages for your store, that really is only the beginning. So why would I say that? Well, let's imagine that you translate your store into Spanish. So now you have both English and Spanish available on your store. Now what you've done there is you set an expectation, and that expectation is that all of your future communication could be in Spanish. So that means all of the emails that go out, all of the customer service that you're going to provide should also be in Spanish as well. Now, you could say that's not essential, but imagine a customer comes to your site who's Spanish speaking. They go on, they order their products, and then they start getting emails and all kinds of other good stuff in a language that they really don't understand. It's not going to be a great customer experience. And that's why I say the simple translation of your site, because it is relatively simple, is kind of just the beginning. You need to think about the whole process from A to Z before you really start looking into translating your store. But if you really sense an opportunity and you feel like you can massively expand your sales to the Spanish-speaking market, for example, by translating the site into Spanish, going that extra mile might be well worth the effort. So as we look at how to build out your business to the next level, we've looked at fantastic alternatives to AliExpress. We've seen how we can add multiple currencies to your store and also, should you so wish, add different languages. But now it's time to look at how to build your team, because of course, as your business grows, you're going to need help. So how are we going to do that? Well, firstly, let's talk about what not to do. Because if you think about traditional business, as it grows, typically what will happen is the person will move out of their bedroom and they will rent office space and have employees, people coming to work. Now, while that's absolutely fine, the huge problem with that are all the overheads that go with it. You have got to rent office space. You've got to pay for it up front. You're probably going to have to sign a contract for 3 years or something like that. You're also going to have people on proper employment contracts, and that's going to cost you as well, etc., etc., etc. These are all huge overheads which you can very easily avoid, and in this internet world are really totally unnecessary, and especially with this type of business. Because in fact, what you want to do is to make use of outsourcing virtual assistants. I've talked a little bit about virtual assistants before when we were talking about the virtual phone system and also some advice on how to handle your orders. But the idea is, of course, that you remain as one person, or maybe there's two of you in the business, even within your own house. That's no problem whatsoever. And then you use virtual assistants around the world to help you. You don't need to be in the same office. You don't need to rent office space. You can simply communicate them over communication methods like Zoom, for example, as and when you need to. It's very, very simple and very, very low cost. Not only that, but if you have any issues with a virtual assistant, you can very easily replace them. You don't have to go through some complicated contract law in order to let them down gently or anything like that. You have a very fluid and very dynamic business. So outsourcing using virtual assistants really is the key. So having established that, the next question becomes, How do you outsource? What do you actually do? And again, this is based on years and years of my experience. So, first of all, use a reputable source. I've already talked about online jobs and Upwork, for example. There are many. Choose the one that you like the best, but those two are a very good start. Now, secondly, and this is absolutely key, only outsource what you have done yourself, and I put you in brackets afterwards, for at least 6 months. Now, the reason why I write that is because you cannot, it's extremely difficult to tell somebody else what to do if you haven't done it yourself first. And it will take you probably 6 months to feel like you've got a very confident process, to feel like you really understand what's going on. Then when you hand that over to somebody else, you can give them a proper description of what they need to do. And should they start trying to pull the wool over your eyes or anything like that, you can see straight through it. In that manner, you can build a really good relationship long-term with your virtual assistant. If you rush into it and simply try to outsource something immediately, you will very quickly lose control of it and probably get the wrong kind of virtual assistant, use up all kinds of negative energy, and go back to doing it yourself anyway, and then do that for probably 6 months and then outsource, okay? So start off properly. Do it yourself for 6 months and then start looking for help. Probably sound quite passionate about that point. Now, number 3, as ever, it has to make financial sense. So if you're going to outsource something, let's say you do the outsourcing of your orders. And the reason why you might be doing that is because you simply cannot handle the number of orders. That's a very common problem. So if you can't handle it, it means you can't process them, which means you're not getting money in the door. Therefore, it makes total sense to have some help. But there might be other things which are just sort of vanity projects or luxury things that really you don't need to outsource. It doesn't really make financial sense. Perhaps you're just being a little bit lazy, getting a bit ahead of yourself. But suffice it to say, every time you make some kind of outsourcing decision, ask yourself, does it make financial sense? Now, in addition to that, there are certain things, in my opinion, that you should outsource and you shouldn't outsource. So what should you outsource? Well, you should outsource your order fulfillment. As I say, I've already talked about this in a previous lecture. That's probably going to be the very first thing that you're going to try and outsource. Secondly, you should try and outsource your content creation for your advertising. All those tips and lectures I gave you about how to drive traffic to your store, ultimately, you will probably want to try and outsource that. Again, not straight away after 6 months when you're really confident about what's going on, but that's going to free up an enormous amount of your time, potentially give you a very good return on your investment. Equally, when it comes to paid advertising, should you go down that route, and as I said before, you don't necessarily need to, but if you do, then paid advertising is also something that's very good to outsource. Now, I will say this. Probably once you start to get your store up and running, you're going to be contacted by all kinds of media companies promising you the world, promising that they can super easily drive incredible traffic to your store. And all you need to do is to give them 5,000 euros or whatever, and it will all be done like magic. Okay. Trust me. Almost none of those companies are going to deliver on those promises. I hate to be cynical, I hate to be negative, but it is so much the case that they will take the money from you, they've got nothing to lose, and then when it doesn't work out, they'll say something like, well, your store wasn't really up to scratch or something. It won't be their fault, okay? So when it comes to paid advertising, please don't use an agency. There really is no need. Find a really good paid advertising expert with a really good track record, once again, on one of those outsourcing websites. So those are the top 3 things, if you like, that I feel that you should outsource. But what should you not outsource, ever? Well, one of the things I think is absolutely key is customer service. Now, there's a huge reason for this. And the main reason is because when you have a very close contact with your customers, you learn an awful lot about your business. Not only do you learn the good things like, hey, you've got a great website, we love your products, etc. More importantly, you learn about the negative things. You learn about the problems. And that's how you improve your business. That's how you grow your business. Whenever there's a problem with your business, you need to react to it positively. It's not always a real problem. It might just be some customer with some sort of silly complaint. But for the most part, they're returning really good positive feedback to you. They're saying, by the way, we had a problem with your site. The delivery times were too long, or your customer service doesn't really work, or your website's a bit slow, or whatever. I'm just checking out examples here. Now, that's not the time to sort of take umbrage, to think, oh, I'm offended. At that point, you want to say to yourself, okay, I need to fix this. That's how you will improve your business. And the only way to do that is to have very close relationships with your customers, to be really in the firing line. Now, I say this because I've made this mistake in the past. With one of my businesses in the past, I basically outsourced very quickly the customer service, and I felt completely disconnected very quickly from what was going on. And the business suffered badly as a result. I ended up getting rid of my customer service people and doing it myself, and continue to do it yourself to this day. Now, it doesn't actually end up being particularly time-consuming in the end either, because over time, you will know the questions that your customers are going to ask even before they ask them. Okay, you get into this kind of rhythm. It's always the same sort of stuff, but it is so important to remain super well connected to your customers. So that's why I think you should never outsource customer service. Now, the other thing that I feel really strongly about as well is product selection. There are an awful lot of services and apps and sites, and you've probably seen them by now, that offer you the latest list of the latest hot products. Now, while these services, some of them are actually not bad, while they're pretty good, the problem with that is that many people are looking at them. Okay, many people are looking at those hot products. So when you think about it in those terms, how hot really are they? How unique really are they to you? They are basically selling a service. They're making their money by selling a service, not by selling products. It's very important to realize that, where their motivations lie. They want to sell subscriptions. Anyway, that's not the only way to make product selection. What I really want to say is the more that you do product selection, the easier and easier it becomes. It's kind of a mixture of art and science. When you very first start off trying to select products, you will have done this already. When you start off trying to select products, it's a bit like, oh my God, what do I need to sell? I've given you some tips to get you started, but it sometimes feels a little bit overwhelming. And then, of course, you need to try and sell it. Sometimes it will sell and sometimes it won't. But over time, you're going to learn what sells and what doesn't sell. And you kind of develop this sixth sense. Eventually, you'll be able to look at a product on a site, I promise you this, and say to yourself, do you know what? That is definitely going to sell. I have a really good, strong feeling about it. But that comes with time. That comes with doing it yourself, which is why I really think you should keep product selection close to your chest and never outsource. So there we go. That's how to build your team, or at least get started. Those tips are going to take you a very, very long way to taking your whole business to a whole new level. So now that you know how to outsource, how to build your team, the next thing you're going to want to know is how to actually add them into your store, how to give them the relevant permissions that you want to give them so that they can work with you. Well, luckily, Shopify has this all thought out. And as you can see, I've come straight to my settings in my store and users and permissions. So if I scroll down a bit, we got the store owner, which of course is me. And then below that, we have the staff. And you can see that I can add up to 2 staff on my current plan, which was the cheapest plan. And 2 staff is more than enough to get started. That's going to take you a very, very long way. So having found somebody on one of those outsourcing sites, what will we do? We would simply come in here and click on Add Staff. Then we would add in the name and the last name of that person and their email address. And then all we would need to do is to choose the permissions that we want to give them. So let's just say, for example, that we did want somebody to help out with the orders. So we could say orders. Yes, they can edit orders. They can look at the draft orders. It makes sense for them to view the Shopify payments and also to view and receive the billing emails. Okay, that's going to give them an awful lot, almost everything they need in order to fulfill the orders for me. Now, the other thing that's still missing is I do need to give them permission on an app, and that app would, of course, be Obolo. Okay, so by doing that, I've given them everything they need to come in and help me out with fulfilling orders. And with that done, all I then need to do is to scroll down and click on this send invite button at the bottom. When I click on that, they're going to get an email with a password. They'll then log in, and then the only things that they'll be able to do on the store will be related to help me fulfill orders. They're not going to be able to come in and do anything else. So the two of us can now work in total harmony. It's very, very simple. Should I have any problems, I can very easily revoke their permissions. If I want to give them more work, I can very easily come in here and ask them to help me out with other stuff. For example, I might say, well, do you know what? Could you help me out with some SEO? So I could click on that, send another invite, and the next thing, they can help me out with my SEO procedures. So it really is very, very simple. Once you've found somebody to help you out with your team, simply come in here and send out an invite. So in this section, I want to give you some high-level tips on how to run your business. Good housekeeping, if you will, okay? So the first thing I want to address, and something I get asked all the time, is, do I need to register a business? Now, everything that we've done in the course up to now, and you can execute all of that. So you can set up your Shopify store, you can start running Facebook ads, and you can even start making sales without setting up a business. So if you're at all worried about that, you can do everything that we've talked about on the course without having to dive in and register a business straight away. Now, with that said, it's important to understand that at some point you will need to register a business. And I suggest you start looking into that once you've got a few sales under your belt. It also might feel a little bit intimidating, the idea of registering a business, but it's really not. It's a very straightforward process, but of course it varies enormously from country to country. And with so many students in so many countries, I'm not in a position to give you advice on exactly how to do it. But this is the best way. The best way is to simply go onto Google and Google your local accountant. Okay, your local accountant will always give you a bit of their time for free, typically 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, depending on how generous they're feeling on that day. And just give them a call or send them an email and say, look, this is the business I'm setting up. What is the business that I need, where I live, that's going to be the best for me? And you're going to get an answer very quickly, because all you need is a very basic business structure. It's really not complicated. It's just kind of one of those slightly boring admin things that you just have to do. Now, if you do contact your local accountant, they will, of course, want to follow up with their services, but you don't need to worry about engaging an accountant, especially in this early stage. And in fact, in the next lecture, I'm going to show you the procedures, the basic procedures that you need to put in place so that you can run your business as smoothly and as efficiently as possible. Okay, so let's talk about running your business, because that's exactly what you're doing here. You are building your own very exciting and highly profitable business. And I'm fully aware that many of the people doing this course will never have run a business before. So I want to give you some high-level tips as to how you can run your business efficiently and effectively. Now, the first thing I want to say is that some time ago on the course, I said, if you want to get wealthy, the number one thing you need to learn how to do is to get focused. Well, the second thing, number 2, would be to get organized. And that's what I want to help you with here in running your business. Now, it's amazing the number of people that are totally disorganized running their business. And if I ask them from month to month how much money they're making, they haven't got a clue, which absolutely astonishes me. So I don't want you to be one of those people. I want you to always have a good understanding of where your business is at. Now, I don't mean minute by minute, but certainly month by month, you should know how well your business is doing. And really, all that involves is keeping track of your sales and expenses on a regular basis. So what does that mean? What are your sales and expenses? And if you have run a business, I apologize for perhaps this being a little bit basic. But as I say, many people haven't done this. So please bear with me. So when we talk about sales, we're talking about orders, okay? Orders that have come into your store. And when we talk about expenses, we're really talking about anything that you have paid for. So let's have a closer look at your sales and your expenses and see how you can keep track of both of them. So first off, your sales, your orders. Well, as we've seen, those are recorded in both Shopify and Oberlo. So they really are super easy to track. So let's just dive over to Shopify and also Oberlo just to remind ourselves where all the information lies. So of course we've seen all this before, but I've got all my orders building up here on Shopify, and I've also got all my orders building up over here on Oberlo. Now, in terms of keeping track of everything, I will use Shopify. And most of all, I will use this export function, because it allows me to export my orders by date. Okay, you can see this particular option here. And by doing that, I can basically take any month I want and see how many orders, the total orders, and all the detail, of course, but most of all, the total orders that I would have had for that particular month. Now, as I go through the rest of this lecture, that's going to become clearer why that's important. But by using this very simple but very powerful system, I really have no excuse for keeping track of my orders. So now let's have a look at the expenses. And I'm just going to talk about the main ones here because this is very much a high-level presentation. So your first expense is going to be your Shopify platform, your $29 that you're paying every month. Now, if you haven't found them already, you can find all that information in the billing section within your settings. Now, this, of course, is very straightforward because generally speaking, all you're doing is just paying $29 per month every single month, and there's not going to be any change at all. But nevertheless, if you want to go into the detail, you're going to find it all within that billing section. Your next expense is going to be your Facebook advertising. So if we head over to Facebook and to your ads manager, when you click on the menu and it brings up all these amazing things, over here on the right-hand side, you've got your billing. So if you click into that, you're going to be able to see exactly what you're paying in Facebook advertising month by month. Now, your next expense, and not wanting to confuse you, are your AliExpress orders. So all of those products that you ordered on AliExpress need to go in as your expenses. Yeah, they're a cost to your business. You paid for them. So in order to see what those are month by month, all you need to do is to head over to Ali, go to your orders and all orders, and then you've got a nice date range here where you can basically pull out your orders for any particular month. So those three expenses, Shopify, Facebook, and AliExpress, particularly Facebook and AliExpress, are going to be your big ones, okay? Those are going to account for the majority of your expenses, but there will be others. So, for example, you may have bought some apps, and another one that people forget are your payment provider fees. That's an expense. So when somebody buys something off your site, so let's say they buy it for $20, you're going to pay a percentage to whoever your payment provider is, PayPal, Stripe, whatever it might be. And you'll be able to get that information easily simply by logging into the interface provided by your payment provider. And then you might have other expenses. You could put down your mobile phone, for example, if you are genuinely using it for your business, or sometimes people are able to put down something for a home office. There's various expenses that you might also be able to add in. But the message here is that you need to record them on a monthly basis, and you need to know where all that detailed information can be found. So now that you know where to find all of your information about your sales and your expenses, what I suggest you do is at a high level at the end of each month, you use a spreadsheet to note the total sales and expenses for that month. So let's just say for the sake of argument that June is the first month you're going to do this. So at the end of June, June the 30th, you have your spreadsheet, okay? So it's a date column, says June, okay? Then you have the second column, which is sales. And you head over to Shopify and you download the information just like I showed you and calculate what your sales were for that month and just put that number in. Then your next column is going to be expenses. But what I suggest you do there is you break it out into a few sub-columns. So reflecting, of course, the Shopify platform, Facebook advertising, AliExpress orders, apps, payment providers, and whatever else it might be. And that you put in the numbers appropriate to each. And then once you've done that, then you can very easily calculate your total expenses. So now you've got your total sales and your total expenses. And then what you can do is take your expenses away from your sales, and that's going to be your profit. And then at the end of July, you'll do the same thing. And then at the end of August, and you carry on like that. This thing will take you about an hour at the end of every month to put those numbers in. But that way you are totally organized. You're keeping track of your sales and expenses, and you know exactly how your business is doing at any given moment. And then once a year, okay, your year end for your business, which might be the end of the calendar year or it might be some date that you selected. But the key thing is you're only going to be doing this once a year. And that's where you hand over all of these details to an accountant or you input it into some sort of software so that you can properly submit your accounts. And that's going to be an easy process because you now have a spreadsheet with all of your sales and expenses on it. And should you need more detail, you know where to go to find it. So that at a high level is how to run your business. The key thing here, of course, is to get organized. And once you've done that, to keep track on a monthly basis, to have a routine at the end of every month so that you know where you are with your sales and expenses and you fully understand how your business is performing. So now that you've got your business operating nice and smoothly, the next thing you might want to consider is backup. Now, the reason I say might is because built into the Shopify platform, you have automatic backups, okay? So should your site ever go down, which I'd never ever seen, but should it go down, then Shopify has it all backed up and will be able to restore it in no time at all. So you therefore might say to yourself, well, if that's the case, why do I need to consider backup? Well, the fact is that Shopify is always backing up the last thing you did. So if you make a mistake, then that's also going to get backed up and you won't be able to rewind to your previous version. In other words, the version where you hadn't made the mistake or before you made the mistake. Now, small mistakes, obviously, that's no big deal. But where you used to do something a bit stupid, like delete a bunch of orders or products from your site, and you might say, well, I would never do that. Well, we all say that, and there's a good chance that you won't. But at the end of the day, we're all human and mistakes do happen. And that's why in the world of backups, which is a multi-billion dollar industry, in the world of backups, there's something called incremental backups. So rather than just having one single backup, which is what Shopify is providing you with, you have a series of backups going back in time. So let's just imagine that with your Shopify store, you've done a backup right now. You would also have a copy from yesterday and a copy from the day before that and a copy from the day before that, etc. So you have a series of incremental backups, which you can then go and revisit should you make a mistake and restore from that point in time. Now, as I stress, Shopify will back it all up, so you've got nothing to worry about there, but it doesn't have the ability for you to go back and restore an old version. So if you want to have that option, and it's not essential, but if you do, of course, the solution comes in the form of an app. And the app I can recommend to you this time is called Rewind. Now, there are others, of course, which I'm sure are very good, but I'm recommending you products that I actually use as ever. So there's a 7-day free trial, as you can see, so you may as well just install it and see how it performs. That'll really bring it to life. And then after that, there's a modest fee. And I see this as kind of insurance. I feel like I'm paying for insurance here, because that's effectively what it is. So if anything goes wrong, I can at least get back to a previous version of my store. But just to repeat myself once again, it's not essential because Shopify has you covered. But should you want to benefit from incremental backups, at least now you know the app that can take care of it. So as we approach the end of this course, I did just want to insert this lecture. Okay, I just wanted to talk about the millionaire mindset because there is no question a certain mindset to becoming a millionaire or at least to becoming successful. Now, what I'm going to do here is just switch over to a lecture that actually is from another course of mine. So you'll see some references that possibly don't necessarily make sense. It's all about creating courses rather than creating a dropshipping business. But nevertheless, they are very, very important points. Everything I'm about to talk about absolutely applies to building a very successful dropshipping business as well. So sit back and enjoy, and I really hope these points are going to have a massive impact on your bank balance as well as your future success. When I build a business, I like to think of it as building a skyscraper, if you like. And the mindset is very much the foundation. Every skyscraper, every tall building, every business needs a solid foundation. That's exactly what the mindset is. Now, so many people overlook this, and it really doesn't take an awful lot to grasp it. And in fact, in the next few minutes, you're really going to understand the key fundamentals to the millionaire mindset. I also want to emphasize that this isn't just something that I came off with at the top of my head or read a book and I'm just regurgitating it for you. I've been basically building businesses for 25 plus years, okay? I've had an enormous amount of success. So what you're about to find out here literally comes from my experience, the key factors that have enabled me to become successful. Now, of course, you've noticed that I've written up there that anyone can be a millionaire, and I firmly believe that. But I guess what I'm really trying to say is that anyone can be successful. Anybody can become more successful potentially than they think they can be, all right? Many of us have kind of like limiting factors, but in fact, there's so much more that we can do. So let's dive into the key points. Let me help you open your mind to the millionaire mindset. So the first key point is focus. By the way, there are going to be 4 key points, okay? Now, the first one is focus. Ask anybody who's been successful, and they will typically cite that becoming focused, learning how to focus, has been the key to their success. But what does it really mean? What does it mean to actually focus? Well, one of the main things is to remove all distractions, big or small. Let's just start with the small ones. These can be things like your phone going off all the time, distracting you with Facebook messages or some other kind of social media, or perhaps it's Netflix. It could be anything. The problem is the moment these days you put yourself in front of a computer, there's all kinds of stuff bombarding you from all kinds of angles. So the first thing you need to do is to learn how to just switch those off. I don't mean like all day long. Just for the half an hour that you're going to focus on something, okay? So if right now, while you're listening to me, those messages are coming in, just switch them off. Listen to me for 30 minutes or an hour or however long you've got, and you'll be amazed how easily you can focus and how quickly you can learn. Now, the bigger distractions are not so easily solved, but they are totally solvable as long as you take a certain period of time to actually do it. I'm talking about things like you might have problems with a relationship or financial problems, which of course this course is going to go a very long way to helping you solve. Or perhaps you don't like your job. It could be anything, right? But these are the big things. These are the big things that knock around in your head all the time, and we all have them. Now, I'm not saying you're going to remove those overnight, but it's a really good idea to help you focus, to have a plan to remove them, all right? So whatever you have in your life, basically make a plan. Think, right, within a month, I want that gone. And this is the way that I'm going to do it. I'm going to take these little steps, and by the end of the month, it will be gone, and I'll be able to focus so much better because I won't have that big distraction knocking around in the back of my brain. Now, please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you have to remove every single distraction to be successful. Of course not. We're all human. We all have distractions going on inside us all of the time. I'm just trying to limit them. Maybe I should have written limit distractions rather than remove all distractions. But I really hope you get the point. By removing distractions or limiting them, both big and small, you will focus so much more easily. You will learn so much more quickly, and therefore you will become more successful in a much shorter period of time. The second way that can help you focus massively is simply to look after yourself, okay? Exercise, eat, and sleep well. Now, I'm not here as some kind of preacher to teach you how you should be living your life. That's not it at all. I'm just saying that if you feel like you should be doing a bit more exercise, or perhaps eating a bit better, or getting more sleep, or drinking less, or whatever it might be, just making an incremental change in your life can make a massive difference. Just by sleeping well, when you wake up in the morning, your brain is like ping, ready to go and ready to focus. It really does make a massive effect on your success in the future. And lastly, get organized. Now, this is actually pretty straightforward to do in terms of this course and what I want to teach you here. So in terms of getting organized so that you can learn how to build a very successful online course, what you should do is just set aside some time every day. Choose that part of the day where your brain is the most active. For me, it's first thing in the morning. For some people, it's late at night. But choose that time, switch off all the distractions, of course, and just simply focus on the course. You only need to do like 30 minutes a day. If you've got an hour, so much the better. But 30 minutes is already a fantastic start. And the key is to be consistent. So do 30 minutes every day if you can, or at least Monday to Friday. Try to avoid not doing anything for 2 weeks and then trying to do like 10 hours on the weekend or something like that. Try as best you can to break it down into small chunks of time, because for the best of us, after an hour, your mind kind of starts to go mushy and it starts to wander and you lose focus. So there we go. Remove all your distractions, look after yourself the best that you can, and get organized will make an enormous difference to your millionaire mindset. The next point is what I like to call the Law of 5, and you might have seen a variation of this. The Law of 5 basically states that you are the average of your 5 closest friends. So very simply put, if you hang out with 5 successful people, it's very likely that you will become successful. If you hang out with 5 alcoholics, then it's fairly inevitable what might happen. I hope you see the point, okay? So this is a very quick point, but it's super, super important. Look around you in your circle of friends. Do you have friends saying things like, oh, that course, that complete course creator, that's never going to help you. Those kind of courses never do. Are they constantly putting you down or discouraging you, perhaps for their own personal reasons? Or in fact, within your closest circle of friends, do you have people saying, that's great, that's going to be a fantastic course, I can't wait to see your creation. I've got such a strong feeling that you're going to be very, very successful. Ask yourselves those questions and think about whether you want to keep those exact circle of friends in the future. Now, of course, you're not going to change that overnight, but gravitate towards those people that are going to help you become successful as you move forward. Now, this third point might surprise you, and that is that money is not the key objective. Every millionaire with the right mindset knows this, because in fact, what you always need to do is to lead with value. You need to help others. That's how you become wealthy. The money will follow naturally. So in the most part, successful people are never thinking, how can I make $100,000 as quickly as possible or $1 million in the next year? They don't think like that. They think, how can I help a certain group of people achieve their goal? And once they've achieved that goal, I know that I will be able to offer my services. Now, if that's still confusing, think about it this way. Imagine you wanted to help 100 people lose weight. If you just went up to them all and said, hey, I've got this product, you definitely have to buy it. It's amazing. They don't know you. They don't trust you. They've got no idea who you are. Do you think that they're going to buy from you? Of course not. But if you taught them certain things, let's say about the way that they should perhaps approach their life differently and really help them so that they get to know, like, and trust you, and then later on you offer your products, of course, at that point, it's very likely that they're going to purchase from you. So you have led with value. You have helped them. Now, I believe that only a tiny percentage of people do it like this. All over the internet, there's people trying to push products in our faces, even if we don't know who they are. And of course, we just turn off every single time. And those people fail very, very quickly. Now, with courses, you are so well positioned because a course by nature is there to help someone. I'm teaching you right now how to write a very successful course. And the course that you create is going to help other people by teaching them whatever it is that you're going to choose to teach. So I hope you see that from that point of view, online courses is an incredible way to make money and build a very, very successful business. Now, the last point number 4, is to understand that you are no longer trading hours for dollars. So what do I mean? Well, if you have a job, basically you go to work and you are paid for every hour that you're at work. That's how you make money. You are trading your hours, your time for dollars. And the only way to increase the amount of money you get is either to work more hours or to get a pay rise. Those are your only two options. But when we create a business, it's not like that. We are looking to create a product that we can write once and then sell multiple times, potentially thousands or hundreds of thousands of times. And a course is a perfect example of that. You can write it once, put it out there on the internet. And of course, I'm going to teach you all of this great stuff, but put it out there on the internet. And then literally while you sleep, you are making money, and your potential to earn money is enormous because you are no longer trading hours for dollars. Now, to really understand this, you have to understand the concept of delayed gratification. Okay, this is really quite a different concept to having a normal job. Because what we're going to do, or what you're going to do, is spend time creating a course. Take you a few weeks to actually create your course. So you're not going to get instant gratification. It's not like you do 1 hour of work and then somebody pays you. All right, you're basically going to do work for a few weeks and then you will get the reward. That's a delayed gratification, okay? So a very simple switch of mindset. But when you think like that, you very quickly realize the power of money and how people can become millionaires. Now, a big part of the delayed gratification process is that you are going to make mistakes. It's just normal, right? We're all human. No one's ever going to start any kind of process and just sail through it without making any kind of mistakes at all. But so many people, it feels like to me like 90% of people, the moment there's a mistake, they just give up, right? Now, the millionaire mindset says, I'm not giving up. I'm going to look at my mistake and I'm going to learn from it. Now, I've no doubt you've heard that many times, but in fact, it's not that difficult to do. It's all about accepting criticism, which as humans, we find pretty hard, in fact, either from somebody else or from within ourselves. But if you can accept criticism and learn from your mistakes, your abilities to succeed will skyrocket. And the last point is, don't be a perfectionist. There's nothing necessarily wrong with being a perfectionist, but when you are a perfectionist, you never get the product out. There's always a reason not to do it because, of course, it has to be perfect. So whenever you're approaching something like this, building a business, once you get to that point where you feel like it's sort of 70 to 80% complete, then that's the time to release it. That's the time to move on. You're going to learn anyway as you go on. It's an iterative process. I'm going to show you how you can constantly improve your course and constantly continue to make more and more money over time. But don't be a perfectionist, especially in the beginning, because otherwise you are never going to get your product out there. So there we go. Those are the 4 key points, my key points, because they come from my own experience over 20 years of building successful businesses, the key points to the millionaire mindset. Now, I don't want you to think that you definitely have to have all of these in place before you can even start this course. That's not it at all. In fact, you might want to even print this slide out or keep it by you in some form or another so that you can keep these key points in the forefront of your mind as I show you how to build a very successful business. So this is the final lecture of the whole course, and I really want to congratulate you once again if you made it now all the way through the whole course. I really hope you've enjoyed it. I really, really hope you felt like you got a lot of value. You know, it takes a long time to put the course like this together. It can take several weeks. Much thought goes into it. So I hope that really comes across and that you feel like this has been a really good use of your time. Now, I've been saying throughout the course that we're building a real business here. I've been saying stuff like that a lot, yeah? And that this is not a get-rich-quick scheme, etc. And that's exactly the case, because by the time you've reached this stage of the course, if you follow it with massive action, work hard, never give up, and have realistic expectations, there is no reason why you can't build yourself a very profitable business. And I want you to know that I am speaking from experience. I'm not just some kid out of college that's been out 6 months, jumped on YouTube and started telling everybody how they can make $1 million in 5 seconds and buy a Lamborghini. That's not the case. I've been doing this for decades. I have built several businesses and I know exactly what it means to build a profitable company. And so you can see here that it says selling your business because you have a real asset. If you build a business that's making $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year, no matter what it might be, you have a real business with real value. And that means that somebody could potentially buy it. And when we talk about selling a business, it's not always easy to evaluate it because there are so many different variables, but you can at least count on 1 year of sales as your business value. So, as I say, if you've got $300,000 going through it every year, somebody would buy it for at least $300,000. And there's no reason as well why you couldn't create more than one store going forward. I mean, I don't want to get you overexcited, but all of these things are possible. People do them every day, and really the only thing standing between, let's say, success and failure, without being too simplistic, is simply going for it, is simply taking action. You know, I guess I'm somebody who is, let's say, quite naturally motivated. I like to get up in the morning. I like creating my businesses. And probably that motivation comes from never wanting to ever work in an office again, which was a very, very long time ago for me. Something I did and something I disliked intensely. And so for me, building my own businesses, particularly in this internet lifestyle, is exactly how I want to live. And it's been very good to me, but I know that it's hard work. You've got to put in the hard work. And if you do, you will be rewarded in spades. So I just wanted to leave you with this final thought that you can sell your business. You have an asset that has real value.